What is up, you guys? Trey, Lyle, Michael Massie, Adam Cheek, all from Frontstretch.com, here to react to Chris Buescher's win here at the Richmond Raceway. And let's start off with that performance by Chris Buescher, a race dominated really by two teams, and maybe two surprising teams. That was RFK in 2311. 2311 dominated the first half of that stage with Tyler Reddick winning stage one, Bubba actually finishing second in that stage, and then he kind of dominated the first half of stage two, had a slow pit stop, and then ultimately led to Brad Keselowski taking the lead and winning stage two, and then ultimately a pit mistake really by Brad allowed Buescher to get the win, but those two were very competitive all day. Two teams that dominated the day, but ultimately it leads to Chris Buescher winning the race.
Yeah, RFK Racing's been on this weird hot streak of short tracks lately, and like you said, it's a very interesting race where Richmond seems to lean even more into strategy over the last few years than it has in recent memory. We saw Denny and Byron, that whole thing last spring, and then we saw last night with Hocevar and Ty Majeski, strategy really playing a role. And then with Brad and Buescher, Buescher's car came to life a little bit later on. Brad was pretty good from the start. He crept up into the top 10 and really had a good run going. But RFK Racing, just so much growth over the past year and a half or so. Buescher won Bristol. Brad looked like he was going to win Atlanta a few weeks ago. And they combined to lead, 190 laps. Brad with a race high 102, Buescher with 88. So just a great performance for them and for Ford as a whole. I mean, 6 cars in the top 10 after kind of a lackluster year. That's pretty great. A pretty great outlook for that manufacturer.
Yeah, Ford finally showed up, it kind of felt like today, and you have to give them credit there. Speaking of a guy from Ford that showed up today, a surprising guy, you wrote about him for Frontstretch.com, was Ryan Preece. He, before that last caution, was running third. He finishes, I believe, sixth on the day, or actually fifth, excuse me. Big day for Ryan Preece and Stewart Haas as a whole.
Yeah, you talk about 2311 RFK, but I got to believe that on the long runs, the Stewart Haas cars were the fastest. Because Eric Almirola, Ryan Preece, they were both laying down some heaters. Almirola could have won this thing if he didn't have a commitment line violation on a green flag pit stop, had to do a pass-through penalty. Preece, I think he just needed more laps. Looked like he was catching. Chris Buescher at the end was in third place. Needed it to stay green, I think. It needed a longer race, maybe a 500-lap race instead of 400 or something. But that caution, he just didn't have a short-run car. Fell back to fifth at the end of it. But it was one of those things, it could have shaken the playoff. It could have flipped the whole playoff scenario on its head if Preece or Almirola had won this thing. Neither gets it done, so that's kind of a bullet dodged for Michael McDowell, who's on the cut line.
Yeah, speaking of the playoff drivers, there's kind of this sentiment where Bubba Wallace really needed to take advantage of these next 2 weeks before the two road courses in Daytona, and he did almost as much as he could do today. Second in the first stage, got stage points in the second stage, ultimately finished in 12th. Was up front most of the day today, led a lot of laps. You have to give him credit there. He's now basically has a race buffer between the cut line at plus 54. McDowell's at plus 18 with Ty Gibbs, who had a really good day, now in that 17th position. AJ Allmendinger, I think, limited the damage a little bit, but ultimately him, Suarez, McDowell, none of them really took advantage or really had great days, and Bubba took complete advantage of it, and you have to give him credit for that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't think of this as a super amazing track for Bubba Wallace, but 2311 had some cars. They're pretty good. As you mentioned, Ty Gibbs was pretty fast as well. It's one of those races where it could have been a shakeup, but Michael McDowell was kind of running 20th the whole time, but I think he did enough to kind of just maintain the gap. So really, it'll be interesting to see. There's only a couple more chances for somebody to steal the playoff spot. I think Indy, the road course there, and Daytona. I think Michigan, Watkins Glen will get straightforward winners there, but two more kind of wild card races.
And Michigan, a track where Bubba was really good last year, finished second, was on the pole. Anything else you noticed from today, Adam, that you want to highlight before we wrap up here?
Yeah, one, who thought Chris Buescher was going to be this good at Richmond 2 years in a row? Almost won last year, was hounding Harvick, gets the job done this year. And who thought that this race was going to come down to 23-11 against RFK? But great showings by both of those teams despite the results. Reddick had that mistake late and Bubba outside the top 10. But who'd have thought it'd be those two teams?
I completely agree. I think a really good race here today at Richmond. Not a lot of cautions, but the strategy played out pretty fun. That will wrap it up our coverage here for Massie, for Adam Cheek, at @M_Massie22, at Adam M. Cheek. My name's Trey Lyle. You can follow me at TreyLyleVT on Twitter. Thank you so much for listening to all of our coverage all week and listening to this post-race conversation.
Hi, this is Steven Stumpf. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Check out the 2 videos beside me, and for more racing content, visit frontstretch.com.